They call him Seatin, the man of legends.
Hey, what is up, you overly attractive bunch, and welcome to the Rift 3.0 Cabalist Guide. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Cabalist, which is the AOE soul that the Cleric has, and it is bloody amazing. You can do some really nasty numbers on multiple targets. So in this video guide, I'm going to talk you through kind of the spec, how to play it, and all that kind of fun stuff. So this is the spec that I use. It is like the second best spec. So the best spec you can actually have is 61 Cabalist, 11 Inquisitor, and 4 Defiler. This is so you get Blighted Greed, and you can apply that to the tank. So this one kind of relies on AOE damage, but with this spec you actually get a Purge as well, which I find very useful, as I mostly use this spec in kind of Dungeons on the Trash and PvP, two scenarios where having that additional Purge can prove very helpful to your group. So this is the spec that I personally prefer. If you want more damage, you want to go sort of 4 Defiler instead of 3 Defiler. Very easy point switch there. If you do not have Storm Legion souls, opt out Defiler for essentially Shaman, and you want to put the 3 or 4 points in Dauntless Courage for 6 to 8% more spell power. For the masteries, level 61 I'm using Soul Collector, level 62 I'm using Divine Inspiration. There's nothing too crucial in terms of like Cabalist DPS in the masteries, so it really is kind of straightforward, pick and choose what you personally would like. I use Swift Judgment as well. Diversify, it is debatable whether Diversify or Sinister Resolve is better. Personally, I find Diversify a bit better, but the difference between them is very minimal, especially in this spec. And then for level 65, I have Soul Stream. Again, literally the level 65 mastery doesn't matter that much, but I just like Soul Stream because it's a very hard-hitting single target ability when that may be needed, or literally if the tank is having trouble sort of staying up, I can just quickly pop that or on the target that I need to quickly top up, and it acts as kind of like an oh shit heal, which I kind of like having the ability to do in a DPS spec. So that's just my personal preference in regards to things. So now on to kind of buffs. Now you'll kind of have 3 core buffs that you want to keep up all the time, and that's Armor of Devotion from Inquisitor, Rage Blight from Defiler, and Sign of Asius from the Cabalist tree. And what this does is literally it increases the damage of your Shadow's Touch, causes that to apply stacks of darkness, so that's more of a single target boost there, and basically causes curses to deal additional damage based on your spell power when they expire, or if the curse is cleansed. So your curses, which are your basically damage over time abilities, if they are cleansed or when they expire, are going to deal like a big amount of bursty damage, depending sort of on your spell power. So that is really good, and kind of part of the core element of Cabalist, which is do not clip your dots, wait for them to expire before you apply them again. You also do have a talent somewhere in the Cabalist tree that basically, like, once you apply one curse, it applies all of them. So you have 3 total curses. Let me just hit Curse of Anarchy there. So you have Curse of Anarchy, which is basically like a big AOE one. You have Curse of Discord, which is a single target one, and Curse of Solitude, which is one that goes on a single target, but it pulses around AOE. So basically you're only going to need one of your curse abilities on your bar, because one of them will apply all of them, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it for sort of buffs and stuff. Now we're going to talk about kind of the core elements of a Cabalist rotation. Now you do have kind of 3 toggleable, I'm going to call them stances, right? You have 3 obliterations. You have Focused, you have Condensed, and you have Unbounded. So what Focused does is it basically makes all your abilities hit just a single target, but it greatly increases the damage of them. Condensed Obliteration, what it does is it condenses your AoE abilities to sort of anywhere between about 2 to 5 targets, and that's when you want to use it. And then Unbounded Obliteration is for 5+ targets. That allows most of your abilities to hit sort of anywhere between about 8 to 10 enemies at a time. So generally speaking, whenever you want to use Cabalist, it is literally going to be Unbounded Obliteration, because Cabalist is the big chunky AOE spec when you want to get that serious DPS out. So yeah, onto kind of the core mechanics of the rotation. So most of the time you want to have Unbounded up, and there are two kind of things you need to keep up on the targets that you're doing. So the first thing is Well of Souls. Now this deals a large amount of damage, applies a dot to them, and also increases damage that those enemies take from various curses and Cabalist abilities. So that should be the first thing that you always apply. So I like to start off with a Well of Souls, and then I'll put my curses up, and then what I want to do is I want to apply a Tyranny, and then I want to spread that using Bound Fate, and then I want to cast an Obliteration ability, and then I want to keep doing that again. So you have 3 different Obliteration abilities, which are essentially Disintegration, Unleash Oblivion, and also Ravaging Darkness. So those are your kind of 3 kind of explode, make all your tyrannies blow up. Your tyrannies also blow up whenever they expire or whenever a target dies. So that really is the core of the rotation. It's all about keeping those dots up, getting the tyrannies up and spreading them, and you know, using the obliteration mechanics whenever you do have them. And as you can see, guys, I am definitely not the best Cabalist in the world, but I am just kind of like, I'm mashing buttons here while talking to you lot, probably cocking up the rotation, and we are doing 200k plus DPS on sort of 8 to 10 targets here. So Cabalist is some very heavy AOE DPS. It's just absolutely amazing, and an essential spec for pretty much all clerics who consider themselves, you know, a very hardcore DPS cleric to definitely have in your arsenal. Because literally the AoE with Shaman, Druid or Inquisitor won't even compare to the numbers that you can pull with this spec. It is absolutely ridiculous, and I do love it. It's really brilliant. Very easy to play. Now, just we'll quickly talk about the single target. The single target is kind of essentially the same rotation, but instead of Bound Fate, you're not going to have to spread your stuff. So whenever you used Bound Fate before, you literally just fill that in with a Shadow's Touch, and that's going to apply stacks of darkness. So sorry, let me just get the debuffs up, etc. Again, the Cabalist single target DPS is fairly weak. It's not really built as a single target DPS soul, but for the rare scenarios that you do need to do that, you know, I'm not terribly good at Cabalist single target, to be honest, but it's kind of the same principles as the AoE rotation. You know, you want to detonate your tyranny whenever you can, but instead of Bound Fate, you literally fill that in with a Shadow's Touch and use Soul Stream off cooldown ideally, or you know, save it for the tank depending on what kind of scenario you are in. Now just a couple of other things worth mentioning about Cabalist. You have some very cool abilities such as Maelstrom. Maelstrom basically pulls up to 10 enemies to the target's location. So for example, it won't work on the dummies, but if I wanted to basically pull all these mobs together, or dummies, I'd use it just on the center one, and it would contract them all together and stack them up on the middle one, which would make it very easy for me to sort of AoE them down. You also have these things called sigils. You have, I believe it's like 4 or 5 different ones of them. So you have one that sort of AoE interrupts and debilitates enemies. You have one that stuns, you have one that slows, and most importantly, you have one that AoE purges, and that one is pretty damn beast. You also have a Sigil of Catastrophe, which applies all of your sigils to the enemy at once, so basically that just chucks absolutely everything at the enemy, and that is really awesome. You also do have a debuff, sorry, called Sign of Spirits, and it's another sigil, Sigil of Spirits even, which increases the damage taken from your sort of magical attacks by 5% on up to 10 enemies. That's quite good to have up in raids, especially if you don't have sort of any AoE support providing that debuff, but usually in kind of environments like that, you will either have like a Bard or an Oracle chucking that debuff up, so you won't really need to worry about it all that much, so it's not too bad there. And the final thing you really have to kind of boost your sigils a bit more is Dominion, which is a buff which resets the cooldown on all of your sigils, apart from Sigil of Catastrophe, and causes the next 3 sigils used to not consume, well, basically not consume a cooldown. So very tactfully playing with this, right? What you can do, especially in experts, and this is a very valuable tip, is you can use Sigil of Secrecy on sort of the target. It won't work on the dummies. Wait till sort of that, you know, expires, and then use it again and again and again And again, so you can get 5 uses out of it, and then you can apply Sigil of Catastrophe. That means that the mobs you are fighting won't be able to attack or do anything for about 30 seconds. And that is a brilliant tip to sort of keep in mind, you know, when it comes to sort of AoE trash, such as in Imperium Core, Nightmare Citadel, that is hitting very, very hard on your group. So that's pretty much it. Apart from that, you got kind of an AoE spell reflect, and also you got Stealth, which also restores health, which is quite weird. It's called Shadow Breach. Basically, it just puts you in stealth while stationary and restores like 25% of your health over 10 seconds. So that's something, you know, that might come in useful if you do need a bit of help healing. But really, Cabalist is as simple as that, really. Is keep up your dots, spread your tyrannies, and detonate them. And GG, congratulations, you have mastered the Cabalist. So, thank you for watching the video, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any questions about Cabalist and how to play, feel free to leave them in the comments of the video below. Apart from that, take care and have an absolutely great day.